Hi, it's John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and let me say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're coming in from, or if you're missing this live training and have an opportunity to hear the replay, let me say thank you for taking a few minutes to be with me today as we talk about identifying your leader language. Now, over the next several minutes that we're together, I want to share some insights into the various leadership styles that you may or may not be exhibiting in your workplace and in your home and in your community. And I want to share with you the impact of the way you lead and how you interact with others can be a positive or a negative. Now, it's important to remember, and I say this in my book, Black Belt Leadership 101, everybody is leading someone somewhere right now. Every single day, you and I are leading ourselves and other people. It might be members of our family. It might be a team at work. It could be a volunteer organization you're working with. You could be an employer with employees underneath you, but every single day you're leading. So the question is this: how well are you leading? So understanding your very unique leadership style can give you some great insight into how to better lead yourself so that you can more efficiently and effectively lead others. Being a great leader means learning to be a great communicator with those that you're leading. And really, what are we trying to do at the end of the day? Create a better, more productive outcome for everyone involved, and that includes you. So I want to start this presentation with a question. How do you define leadership? So I'd like to encourage you, if you would, just a moment, open up the chat box. And if you'd be so kind as to have a little interaction with me here at the beginning of this, if I were to ask you how you define leadership, if you could put leadership into a few words, what would you say leadership is? And I'm going to pause just a minute and give you an opportunity to share that. Come on, Ike, I see you hanging out in there. Brad, I need to hear from you guys. Leadership, setting the example and leading from the front. Thanks, James. Ike says leadership is influence. Ike and I have a common mentor that we work together with, Dr. John Maxwell. So thank you for sharing that, Ike. Outlining the direction to go and the tools to use. Those are some great answers. So let me pose this same question another way. A good leader should always blank, and then you fill in the blank. Now, I want you to think about that particular sentence as we go through, and we have an opportunity to look at different styles of leadership. And really how you answer that question right now can reveal a lot about the leadership style that you're practicing, whether you're realizing you're practicing a leadership style or not. Now, for those of you that don't yet know who I am, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John Terry. I'm a two-time Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductee. The standing joke around my house when my daughters bring a boy home is, this is my daddy, punch, kicks, and kills people for fun, and he taught me to do the same. And we get a big laugh out of that. But I'm a best-selling author, and I'm an international speaker, coach, and trainer, and the founder of Real Life Management. So I want to again say thank you for joining us. And I want to really jump in to talk about what makes a good leader. But before we begin to really get into what that means, I want to share some insights from James McGregor Burns. Now, who is James McGregor Burns? He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning leadership expert. He's a historian, a presidential biographer, and a political scientist. He defines leadership very uniquely. And if you've had an opportunity to read any of his writings, according to what he talks about transformational leadership, or what he refers to as being an inspirational leader, James McGregor Burns says this: an effective leader is someone who, one, creates an inspiring vision of the future. Number two, he motivates and inspires people to engage with that vision. Number three, he or she manages the delivery of the vision. And number four, he or she coaches and builds a team so that it's more effective at achieving the outcome. Now, my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell, a mentor that Dr. Ike and I share, says this: everything rises and falls on leadership. He also says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And one of my favorite quotes that I've heard Dr. John say over the years is, if you think you're leading and no one's following, you're only taking a walk. Now think about that. If you think you're leading and nobody's following your lead, you're taking a walk by yourself. So what is it that really makes a good leader? Now, we need to understand that anyone who's striving to be a good leader should always be growing, always be learning, and always improving based upon what they're reading, what they're being influenced by others, and really what they're learning about themselves. They are learning and growing based upon what they're learning, who they're learning from, and also discovering what those they are leading, their followers, actually need from them. Now, real leadership, what I refer to as black belt leadership, is a lifelong pursuit of personal growth. Just like in the martial arts, getting your first degree black belt isn't the end of the journey. It's only the beginning of really beginning to learn the martial arts. The same is true with leadership. Once you get to the point that you are now given permission to lead, the opportunity to learn to be an effective leader is really just beginning. What are we saying at the end of the day? Being an effective leader is becoming a better version of yourself every single day. It's what I refer to in the Be a Black Belt Leadership program as learning to master your leadership. Now, the longer you lead, the more likely you're going to complete the sentence, a good leader should always blank, a little bit differently. Because as you grow and mature as a leader, you're going to define leadership a little bit differently. But in order to grow as a leader, you first need to know where you are right now, your strengths and your weaknesses, so that you can continue to hone your strengths and address those areas of weaknesses that you either need to have complementary leaders come alongside you to fill that gap or improve in those areas yourself. So let's break down the way that you answered the question of how you define leadership. And maybe you didn't realize it when you join me today, but I'm going to ask you to take a test. I'd love for you to grab a piece of paper, and we're going to take a few minutes, and we're going to go through a very short survey that was developed by leadership expert and professor Bill Torbert, along with psychologist Susan Cook-Gutra. Now, they developed what's called the Leadership Development Profile, and this is going to help you determine which leadership style you're currently modeling in the way you live life based upon some action statements I'm going to share with you that you most agree with. So here's what I'd like for you to do. With pen and paper in hand, I'm going to share a series of statements about specific types of leaders. And when you hear a statement that you agree with, I want you to write down the corresponding letter and number that goes with that particular quote. Now, these quotes are going to be in white. The corresponding letter and number are going to be in yellow, so they're going to be very easy to pick out. Now, at the end, I'm going to kind of share some insights of how we look at what you said describe you as a leader and give you some thoughts about what type of leader you are and some ideas about how you can improve. Now, keep in mind as we're going through these categories, the action statements that I share are from various leadership styles. And the vast majority of people share attributes of more than one leadership style. So just because I'm introducing a particular leadership style doesn't mean you're going to be pigeonholed into one box. Most individuals that are leaders are very adaptable and flexible, and as a result of that, they can move from one type of leadership style to another. Also important to remember that there are different ways to lead, and some are more effective than others. But we need to learn and understand the most effective and efficient ways to lead so that we can continue to hone our skills to get better in those areas. So at the end of the day, we can ultimately get a better outcome for us, for the team that we're leading, and ultimately the audience that we as a group are serving. So let's get started. I want to first talk about the individualist. Now, the individualist leader is someone who's self-aware, they're creative, they're primarily focused on their own actions as opposed to really looking at overall organizational performance. These individualists are exceptionally driven by one thing, and that's the desire to exceed their own personal goals, and they're constantly improving on their skill set. Now, here's some things an individualist might say. And again, if one of these statements or more resonates with you, write down the letter and number, and we'll help you interpret the results in just a moment. So, number one, a good leader should always trust their own intuition over established organizational processes. Number two, it's important to be able to relate to others so I can easily communicate complex ideas to them. Number 3, I'm comfortable with progress, and I'm more comfortable with that than I am with sustained growth. Now, let me share those 3 quotes with you again very quickly, and if any of these resonate, write the letter and number down. I1, a good leader should always trust their own intuition over established organizational processes. I2, it's important to be able to relate to others so I can communicate complex ideas to them. And I3, I'm much more comfortable with progress than I am sustained success. That's the individualist. Now, another leadership style is that of the strategist. Strategists are individuals who are very, very aware of the overall environment in which they're currently operating. They're aware of what's going on around them, and they make it a point to get a deep understanding of the structure and the processes that allows their organization to thrive. But at the same time, a strategist is able to keep perspective, to apply strategic critical thinking, and is constantly evaluating where can we get better? Where can we improve? Now, what are some of the things a strategist might say? Number 1, a good leader should always be able to build a consensus in a divided group. Statement number 2, it's important to help develop an organization as a whole in addition to the growth of individuals. Statement number 3, conflict is inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle that friction. So again, let's revisit those strategies as we look at the strategist and think into how they think and how they operate as a leader. S1, a good leader should always be able to build consensus in divided groups. S2, it's important to help develop an organization as a whole in addition to the growth of the individuals. And S3, conflict is inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle that friction. So let's take a look at the Alchemist. Now, what distinguishes an alchemist as a leader from other leadership mindsets is their unique ability to be a big picture thinker, while at the same time, they understand the need to really focus on the details of what's required to get the big picture accomplished. Now, the Alchemist style of leadership understands that no department, no employee is overlooked because the input from everyone is valuable to getting the greatest insight into how we improve and get better. So here's some things an alchemist might say. A good leader helps their employees reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. Second thing an alchemist might say is it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. Number 3, I have a unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. So let's revisit those. A1, a good leader helps their employees reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. A2, it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. And A3, I have a unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. Now, let's look at the opportunist style of leadership. These individuals are guided by a very interesting philosophy, and that's an innate distrust of other people. They really rely on a facade of control to keep employees in line. When you see an opportunist leader taking place, they typically believe in that old adage of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and opportunist leaders at times can be very vindictive and very manipulative and very, very controlling. So here's some things an opportunist might say. A good leader should always view others as a potential competitor to be bested, even if it's at the expense of their personal development. And they might also say, I reserve the right to reject the input of those who question or criticize my ideas. So let's revisit those 2 philosophies of an opportunist. A good leader should always view others as a potential competitor, someone to be bested, even if it's at the expense of their own personal and professional development. Or number 2, I reserve the right to reject the input of those who question or criticize my ideas. Now, again, there's a diplomatic style of leadership where the diplomat is not concerned about control. They're more concerned about causing minimal impact to the daily routine by conforming to the status quo and going through following existing norms and completing their task with as little friction or pushback as possible. So a diplomatic leader might say something like this: a good leader should always resist change since it risks causing instability. Diplomat may also say it's important to prove the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. Let me reread that. It's important to provide the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. And they may also say, I tend to thrive in more team-oriented or supporting leadership roles. So let's revisit those. A good leader is always resistant of change because it risks causing instability. It's important to provide the social glue in a team scenario to move them safely away from conflict. Or 3, I tend to thrive in more team-oriented or supporting leadership roles. Now, the last one we want to take a look at is the expert. The expert is always at the front line of their field, and they are constantly striving to perfect their knowledge, and they set high standards for themselves that they daily try to not only meet, but to achieve. Now, the expert is fantastic as a contributor and a source of knowledge, and can usually stand to improve themselves in the field of emotional intelligence. Expert leaders tend to get more focused on the task than the people involved in getting the task accomplished. Now, here's some things an expert leader might say. A good leader should prioritize their own pursuit of knowledge over the needs of the organization and their direct reports. An expert leader might also say, when problem solving with others in the company, my opinion tends to be the correct one. Now, let's revisit those two statements of an expert leader. A good leader should prioritize their own pursuit of knowledge over the needs of the organization and the people that report directly to them. Or they may say, when problem solving with others in the company, my opinion tends to be the correct one. So here's the question: which type of leader are you? Hopefully you've had an opportunity to write down some of the statements that you said describe you as a leader. And the more statements you agree with, the more likely you are to practice a mix of leadership styles. So let me break it down for you. Well, if you agreed with everything a strategist said, then you may be a 66% strategist leader, but you're also showing tendencies of a democratic leader because a third of the responses of that strategic leader strategy that we shared tend to be also democratic traits. Now, if you only agreed with one statement, you may be everything the Alchemist said, but by the same time, you could be partially transformational, partially strategic, and partially democratic, because most people are a mix of leadership styles. So grab your piece of paper and let's take a look at how individuals fare out based upon which of the character qualities of leadership you said describes you. Now, if you're a democratic leader, S3 was very, very important to you. And if you were an autocratic leader, O1 and O2, E1 and E2 were important to you. The laissez-faire leader, you can see the attributes there. And with each of the leadership styles I'm going to quickly go through, you can see how the answers to those questions seem to indicate the type of leader that you are. Now, odds are, if you're like most leaders, you're a little bit of several of these, but let's take a look at the primary leadership styles that have been outlined as a result of this study and see where you fall. So let's look at first, democratic leadership. Now, for those of you that fell into that category of being a democratic leader, you'll be happy to hear that this style is commonly a very effective style of leadership. Democratic leaders tend to make decisions based upon the input of the team. Although the leader may make the final call, each employee has opportunity to have input on the decision that's going to be made. Now, democratic leadership can be one of the most effective leadership styles because it allows everyone on the team, even the lowest level employees, to have some level of input in the decision-making process. That ultimately leads to having more skin in the game and generally leads to a more loyal workforce that's going to be willing to work to accomplish the goals and objectives of the organization. Now, if you're trying to solve a problem using democratic leadership, this is how we typically see corporate boards function. The leader gives the team some related options that they can make a decision on. There's open discussion about each of the options on the table. There's input from the group, and then there's either a vote or the leader makes the ultimate decision based upon the input. That's the democratic style of leadership. Now, compared to that, there's an autocratic leadership style, which is diametrically opposed to the democratic leadership style. This style of leadership is rarely effective in the long term. When we think about an autocratic leader, we're thinking about an individual who never values their employees. Their employees are never considered, never consulted, never sought out prior to any decision being made, yet those employees are expected to adhere to that decision without any input. They are expected to do as I say without question. Now, here's an example of autocratic leadership. It might be when a manager on a team arbitrarily decides to change the hours of a particular shift to meet their particular needs or the needs of a vendor without taking time to consult anyone or to explain to the team members why they're making this important change. Now, if you think about today's workplace culture, this autocratic style of leadership is really anathema to long-term success because this style of leadership is going to create significant turnover in the workplace. So if you find yourself as an autocratic leader, you really need to give thought to becoming more open and more considerate to those on your team, seeking their input, their guidance, and their advice. Because a true leader understands you can learn from anyone and everyone, and just because you've always done it a certain way doesn't mean there's not a better, more efficient, or more effective way to get things done. My mentor, Dr. John Maxwell, says one is too small a number to achieve greatness. And if, as a leader, you want the organization you're leading to achieve great things, you need the collective wisdom and the perspective of those on your team that may reveal new and better ways of doing what you're always doing. Now, the laissez-faire leadership style is interesting because the word laissez-faire simply translates as let them do. And the laissez-faire leadership style refers to a leader who essentially gives almost all authority over to the employees, and they allow the employees to be self-directed leaders of themselves. Now, we often see this in young startup companies where you have a number of dynamic individuals on a team that are self-sufficient, and that may work for a while where you don't need major policy decisions and a small group that is intimately focused on achieving a goal or a vision or pursuing a passion. Everybody is laser-centered on seeing that outcome come to life. But as you begin to add team members, that laissez-faire leadership can run into problems because you begin to put full trust in employees who may not have been fully briefed and fully embraced your vision for what you want to be known for and how you want to be perceived in the community and the goals and objectives that you want to accomplish and the way that you want to serve your audience. Now, this laissez-faire leadership style can be very empowering to your employees, but it can also lead to competing ideologies of how you want to get things done. You may want to serve your customer, your audience in a certain way, but if you give everyone the autonomy to serve them in the way they see fit, they may serve your audience in a way that is inconsistent or incongruent with what you want to be perceived at as an overall organization. And this can send a mixed message to the audience that you don't care or that your people have their own ideologies and they're really not concerned with serving your audience, and that's the customers that you have an opportunity to work with every single day. Now, there's also strategic leadership, and this is really at the intersection of an individual who understands the company's operations to do business today and to be profitable today, but is also looking for those future growth opportunities to be able to expand and seize new opportunities and new markets that may present themselves. This leadership style is a style of inquiry, constantly looking at what's going on and examining the overall marketplace while making sure that the business is still operating consistently and stably. But again, looking for that next pivot or that next tweak or that next opportunity they want to seize. One of the things we do know about strategic leaders is they're constantly vigilant. They're constantly honing their ability to anticipate new opportunities by scanning the environment for signals of change. Now, they also have a tendency, and this can be one of their fallacies, that they oftentimes get stuck on studying failure. And if they're studying failure the right way, this can be a positive. But if they're studying failure solely looking at what didn't work, that can be problematic. Good strategic leaders see failure as a learning opportunity, identifying what didn't work, but why it didn't work, and also identifying if that didn't work, what other options or alternatives can we pivot to that could work, and focusing energy, effort, and resources there to keep the organization consistently moving forward, growing, stretching, tweaking, with an objective of not only serving the audience well, but getting better at serving that audience every single day. Now, the transformational leaders are those that are always looking to improve the status quo. They're always pushing their team to grow and to reach outside their comfort zone. This is where some of the most successful organizations in the world find their greatest success. They are investing in their most important asset, and that's their employees that get the job done every single day. So for any organization that's looking to grow and wants to have a growth strategy that's not going to be short-term, but is going to be long-term sustained growth, this is a very powerful leadership style to learn to adapt as a leader. Why? Because it's constantly developing your most important resource, the people that get the job done. Because as you grow the value of each individual team member, stretching them, growing them, improving them, and making each individual on the team a better version of themselves, the entire organization gets better. That's really what we see in some of the most successful organizations in the world and where they have an opportunity to see success. Now, there is one potential downfall to transformational leadership, and before I go on to the last leadership style, I want to touch on that for just a moment. Transformational leaders sometimes, in the goal of growing everyone on the team, occasionally will forget that people grow at different rates of speed. And people have an opportunity in personal growth and development. Not everybody grows at the same rate and at the same speed. So if you're doing coaching and direction, it's important that that transformational leader customize their approach to the individual team members so those that struggle to grow or learn in a more intent, focused, deliberate manner can grow alongside those that grow at a much faster rate. That's why we see these all-important transformational leadership organizations and the groups that want to go there work with a leadership coach or a mentor like the team here at Black Belt Leadership. Now, the last leadership style I want to point out, and this is really one of the more common styles of leadership that we see, and it's one of the reasons we see so many organizations fail. It's the transactional leader. Now, these individuals do one thing. They simply reward their employees for doing the work they're expected to do and nothing more. No incentive, no opportunities for growth. You simply do what I put you to here, and you stay in this status quo relationship of doing what you've always done the way you've always done it because we're not going to change. So a transactional leader does what? They establish roles and responsibilities for each one of the members on their team, each employee, but they encourage their employee to strictly do the bare minimum. This is what I expect you to do, and I'm not going to reward you if you do more than that. There's no incentive for growth. There's no incentive for promotion. Everyone is simply there to do a job and allow the organization to maintain what it's doing. Albert Einstein describes that as the very definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And yet far too many organizations today treat this as the leadership style they want to embrace and adopt and teach others to follow. It's not a strategy for growth. It's a strategy that's focused on maintaining what is rather than what could be. It's a focused on maintaining the status quo and doing things the way they've always been done and simply crossing your fingers and hoping something is going to change. A transactional leader is more concerned with not going backwards than they are about taking the action steps and positioning the members on their team to have an opportunity to move forward and grow and make the organization better. Now, I will mention one more leadership style just in passing, and that's what we call bureaucratic leadership. This is traditional, old-school leadership where you have a leader that simply goes by the books. You follow the rules and you do what the rules say and nothing more. They listen to employees to some degree, but they reject any idea that goes against company policies of best practice or this is the way we've always done it. Why change? A bureaucratic leadership system simply leads to autocratic leadership over time and results in high turnover, lack of productivity, and ultimately the demise of an organization. So, we've looked at various leadership styles, but let me point out one thing in common that we have to have. Regardless of the leadership style that you have and the leadership style that you want to develop to take the organization or the team that you're leading to the next level, there are aspects of leadership that you need to be constantly focused on and improving. One of the most important of those is communication. I'd like to encourage you at the end of this, and I'll be sharing a link for all of you that signed up for this event to access a complimentary training that I did a couple of months ago called Learning to Be an Effective Listener, Mastering the Art of Listening. And in this, I teach you how to become, regardless of your leadership style, a better, more effective listener to get things done. Becoming a better communicator means not just learning how to speak, but learning how to ask good questions that lead to conversation. And more importantly, it's learning how to listen actively and intently and focused so you don't just hear the words that are being said, you hear the intent and meaning behind the words. And when we talk about communication and we think about communication as a leader, remember, you're responsible for one-to-one communications, communications between the departments, staff-wide communications, as well as how phone communications with the public are going to take place, email, social media marketing. All of that is communication, and learning to lead yourself well in this area is so, so important. And that's where learning to be an effective communicator can significantly improve your ability to be a better leader. Now, at the end of the day, the goal of a leader is to do one thing. That's to inspire your workers to go, to do, and to go the extra mile to help your audience, your end user customers, experience something that makes them want to come back and do business with you again. And they have such an enjoyable experience. They not only want to come back, they want to bring their friends, their family, their neighbor, their coworkers to come back. And through training your team properly to lead themselves well, as an effective leader, you can create a referral-based model in your business that allows you to scale your business in a way you've ever seen. And if you as a leader are inspiring your people to go the extra mile, you're rewarding, you're complimenting them, and you're bragging on what they're doing to help the organization grow, what are you doing? You're building their self-esteem. And when you build your teammates' self-esteem and their confidence in themselves, they stay endeared to you and they embrace the vision of your business as their own. Now, important to remember, the ultimate responsibility of a leader is to do one thing, to teach those who are following you to learn to lead, first themselves and then others. Let me say that again. The ultimate responsibility of you as a leader is to do one thing, to teach those who are following you to lead, to first lead themselves well and make good choices, and then secondly, to learn to replicate that in others that they're leading. This is how successful organizations grow, mature, and make a significant impact over time. And this is how you as a leader have an opportunity to move from success to significance. So let me leave you with a thought as we get ready to wrap up here in just a moment. Number one, in order to keep your team motivated, you need to be investing in your team. The most successful organizations hire a coach to be a part of their organization and to help drive their success going forward. In fact, there was a recent study that was put out by Forbes magazine talking about the power of coaching in creating significant scaling with a business. And that's something invaluable that you should do. So I want to encourage you, if you're not already doing so, make personal growth a part of your company's culture. Show your employees that you are committed to them by asking for their feedback, by being open to listening to their concerns and their ideas, recognizing them and complimenting them in front of their peers, learning to recognize and understand the different styles in which they communicate and the way they work, recognizing the uniqueness of their personality, and saying thank you for the work that they do. When you invest in your employees, you are investing in the growth of your organization, and the ROI, the return on investment, can be stratospheric in terms of what you always have trouble with that word. Gives you an opportunity to see a significant return. How about that? Now, here's something else that's important that we need to make sure that you as a leader don't do. And it's a common sign of beginning leaders or leaders who simply get a title and they don't yet really know how to lead. Novice leaders believe that delegating tasks is a sign of weakness, but it's not. Good leaders, effective leaders, and if we look at the most successful leaders in the marketplace today, they practice the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. And here's how they apply that. Good leaders spend 80% of their productive time every single day focused on the 20% of things that they do best. And the other 80% they don't do that well, they delegate it to other members on the team that can do it as well or better than they can. Now think about that. If you as a leader spend 80% of your productive time every single day focusing on the 20% of the things that you do better than anybody else in the organization, and you delegated the rest to other people who did the very same thing, how much more effective would your organization be? How much better would the results be, and how would your success scale if everybody was working based upon their unique skill set? That's something we teach you how to do here at Black Belt Leadership as we teach you how to identify the unique leadership skill set of your team. Identifying the skills of your employees and assigning duties to them based upon their unique skill set. Now, what are you doing? You're being smart, you're being strategic, you're being resourceful. And this is where a coach and a mentor can be invaluable. We as an organization can help you and your team identify the unique skills of each member on the team and help you properly position them to get a better outcome. We typically see within 90 days to 180 days a 30 to 40% increase in productivity and results as a result of going through this very simple exercise with those on our team. And remember this, if we can get the team better, we get the organization better. And now you're serving your audience better than you've ever served them before. And all of a sudden, you become in demand. Now, as we wrap up, let me leave you with this. Simon Sinek, the author of an incredible book, and if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. The book is called Start With Why. You can find it on Amazon. It's an amazing read. Simon's an incredible thinker, and I value the opportunities I have to hear from Simon periodically. But Simon says this, a boss has the title. A leader has the people. So let me begin to wrap this up by asking you a question. Are you a boss or are you a leader? I want to challenge you to do what's necessary to be a leader, but not just a leader. I want to challenge you to become a black belt leader, someone who looks inside and identifies within you and every member on your team the unique skills, talents, and abilities that each person on your team has, and not only discover those, but to develop and deploy them so that your organization masters its opportunity for success. Because when you do that with yourself, you become a black belt leader in life that masters your life, masters your skills and your abilities, and you teach the other members on your team to do the same. Your organization begins to perform with black belt excellence. And when that happens, you master the art of whatever it is that you do. You stand out in the crowd as unique and different, and you begin to attract your ideal audience to you in a way you've never attracted them before. Now, I want to say thank you for taking some time to be with me today, and I'd love to offer you a free gift. And one of the tools that we use here at Black Belt Leadership is a tool that we call real life management. It's an opportunity for you to take a very informative 3-minute survey, and this is going to be my gift to you as a result of participating in today's event. For a limited period of time, we've removed the $19.95 price tag from this particular survey system that we use in advance of us doing this workshop. And for the next 72 hours, those of you that catch the replay are going to have an opportunity to do this yourself. I want to encourage you to go to reallifemanagement.com and take the 3-minute survey. What we're going to do at the end of that is I'm going to share with you a report that helps identify aspects about your leadership style that may give you a deeper insight into who you are and how you lead. And if you've got some questions related to that, I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with you to help you understand more about this particular tool and what it says about you. My gift today for saying thank you for being with us. Now, I want to say thank you to our sponsors that made this possible today: Vision Advisors, Hall of Fame Financial, Rocket Fuel Design, the International Martial Arts Council of America, the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and Real Life Management, who is making this particular resource available to all of you today. Now, again, my name is John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and if you're not following me on social media, let me encourage you to do so. You can go to my website, beablackbeltleader.com, go to the Contact Us page. There you're going to find links to all of my social media resources. Every single day we're posting a tool, a tip, a resource, something to help you grow yourself as a leader, something to help you use with the team that you're leading, the organization that you're helping provide some guidance to, tools and resources that are available there free of charge every single day, 5 days a week, to give you an opportunity to do that. We also have a podcast that goes out every Thursday. You can have an opportunity to subscribe free to that. The link to that is there on our website as well. So I encourage you to do that and take a look at some of the other tools and resources we have. And if there's interest in how we as an organization can serve you and help you scale the success that you're doing, my contact information is there as well. So on behalf of all of us here at Black Belt Leadership, I want to say thank you to all of you for being a part of this event. Thank you for allowing me to speak into your life today. Wish you a phenomenal rest of the week and look forward to an opportunity to share with you again. Thanks for joining me and have a great day.